Leading in Ministry is a video podcast designed to share anecdotal information that helps equip leaders in practical ways. Personal stories help drive the points home while making it both entertaining and informative.
I am really looking forward to today's video podcast, really because it's a special connection that Cheryl and I have had over a number of years now. Michelle Morehouse is the daughter of Steve and Marcia Hurls, who have been longtime friends of ours, and she is now in ministry. And I thought I would just love to engage her in conversation today and see what that journey has looked like. So, Michelle, it's really good to see you today. Thanks for joining me for the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
Well, good. You know, we've known your family, I think it's somewhere around 77, 78, 79, somewhere in that 1970s, late 70s. You were probably 4 or 5 years old. And
yes.
Wow. And then we've just watched you grow up. And it's been an interesting journey and honestly, a very inspiring journey for Cheryl and I. Both you and your brother are involved in ministry today. But your journey that you took to get you to that point was a bit different than what many young people take. And so I just wanted to explore that with you a bit. You did grow up in a pastor's home. So, you have experienced all the things that probably happen in ministry during those years of being a kid, just doing whatever. I think I saw where you had just done about everything there was to do as a volunteer in your home, didn't you?
Yes, it was just part of being a preacher's kid at that point. You know, we folded bulletins and cleaned the church and mowed the lawn, and and I saw my dad and my mom, just they were fully invested in ministry, and they were the church, and they did it with such joy and graciousness that it wasn't a chore for Wes and I. We just felt like it was the family business, so to speak. You just did it because it's what you did as a family, and I enjoyed growing up in a pastor's home.
Sure. So at some point, you graduated from high school, you went to college. What did that look like for you when you went to college?
I actually, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. So I started out at Indiana Wesleyan and as a psychology major, and then decided that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. Transferred schools, actually went to God's Bible School, and stayed on as a stayed on as sort of undeclared there, went back to Indiana Wesleyan as a nursing major, and then decided that wasn't what I was going to do with my life. So basically, after switching majors from undeclared to psychology to nursing, in 3 years, switching 3 times, I decided I just was not going to finish. I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Well, and somewhere in that time frame, you decided to get married, I think.
Yes. So when I decided not to go back to school in that year, my then would-be husband, Jeff, finished college, and so we got married after he graduated, and I was a stay-at-home mom for many years.
Yeah.
That's what I did, and still helped out in the church. It was part of the DNA, I guess. You saw a need and you filled it, and I've done a lot of different places, a lot of different jobs in the church.
Yeah. Well, today's video podcast, I wanted to sort of zone in on the fact of discovering his will through patience, because I really think that's what you modeled. And I looked up the definition of patience, and what it said was it's the capacity to accept or tolerate delay. And I thought, wow, that really was what was happening in your life. without getting angry or upset. And I saw you from a distance. I didn't see you up close all the time, but in all of that, you seem to just be content. But there was a moment when things took a change, and I think you had moved to Georgia.
Yes.
Yeah, pick it up for me there.
Going back to not finishing college, that was always something in the back of my mind I knew I wanted to do, but still searching. I was devoted as a full-time mom, so I was content in that, but there was still that question and still that searching of, okay, God, what do you have next after? Because I knew that being a mom is wonderful, but it does have a shelf life of, then what after that? And so I always had that before the Lord of what's going to be next. And so when we moved to Georgia, we had started attending a church, and they really didn't have a process for new guests to connect new guests into the church. And also they were starting small groups. And so they asked me to help with that. And the more I started helping, the more I realized I love this.
Wow.
Like, this is what makes my heart beat faster. I love being part of a process and being part of thinking in a group think, okay, how could this work for this church, and being part of the systems and processes that make a ministry thrive. So that was something that I didn't ask for, but God presented it to me. And through that, I started paying attention to that quickening of my heart.
Wow. And the truth is that part of what I try to emphasize in these video podcasts is more the practical side of leadership. And so it sort of was very organic, like in this process for you. And you just, as things came into being in your life, you just grabbed a hold of it and tried to take it and develop it. So give me some more of the detail of all about that and what that looked like for you from a ministry leadership perspective.
After my husband was transferred, so we were transferred to Georgia for my husband's job, then we were transferred again because of his job. And so I needed to leave that position, but I knew that was something that was going to be part of my life. And wow. I think part of being open, being willing, being always asking and searching, and I think knowing that God's timetable is perfect, trusting that He is leading and guiding is part of the patience, because He knows what's best. And when we moved back to Ohio, my children were older, and so it was a great time for me to go back to school. And I went to Ohio Christian University online program, and even though I knew that was where God was leading me, there was that moment of doubt when I had to press the button and declare a major. It was a moment of doubt. Like, can I really do this? Is this really something that you want me to commit to? And I declared ministry as a major, and it was writing those papers and being involved in the discussion online at Ohio Christian. It was just even more confirming, because it was allowing my brain to take what I had experienced and put it into a learning environment where I could put nuts and bolts to what I'd already done. Yeah.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. Today you are in Florida, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Stuart, Florida. You live in Stuart, and you're a part of a ministry there. Give me a little bit of a background with that, where you're at there.
When I was getting close to graduation from Ohio Christian, I knew that I was going to have to start using my degree for a job, a real job, my first full-time job ever in my life.
Oh my.
So, which was very scary. And I started praying, and the same faith that was baby faith in all of those years of seeking and asking God what was next became full-fledged practical faith, where I had to really tell God that I was willing to do whatever he wanted me to do. And so I remember praying, Lord, I'm going to ask for open doors and divine opportunities. And I promise I'm going to walk through whatever you open for me. So through a friend who was at Christ Fellowship, he sent me this job description and he said, Michelle, this sounds like you.
Huh.
And so I read through it. I remember exactly where I was when I read through this job description. And as soon as I read it, I started crying and my heart was beating so fast. And I'm like, I know that this is where God is leading me. And I didn't know if it was there at that particular church because it was in Florida, or if it was just something that he was confirming in my spirit. But I promised that I was going to walk through doors. So I pursued this job at Christ Fellowship in Stewart, thinking it's going to be a really good interview experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to go into all the details of how all of that lined up, because it's really miraculous, the timeline of how that whole interview experience happened. But I ended up getting the job, and it was then an act of faith on my family's behalf. They had to, for the first time, they were moving because of me, not because of Jeff's job.
Yes.
So, and it was a big decision, but it was one of those things that, and I'm sure you've had this, where you know that God is leading and you don't know how all of the details are going to work out, but it's like you have complete peace that it's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Oh, it is exactly. I mean, absolutely. It is such a fun journey, especially when it's like that, because there's this excitement. It's very scary because there's the unknown. And I think all of us as human beings, we like to be in control a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really, you just put that faith and trust in Christ that he's in control and it's all going to be okay. It's not like a blind faith. I mean, we try to be wise,
yes,
and smart, but at the same time, I mean, when I would observe you through these years, obviously both you and Wes were always such good kids. You were wonderful and in being involved in the church, but then to discover that all of a sudden you are like just diving into a ministry position. And then I have seen some of the things that you have done. It was the most rewarding thing to be connected from a distance, but to see how that all developed and realize that, wow, what ministry skills you have. Tell me about that, because was there sort of a discovering of yourself in all of that as well?
I believe we all have gifts and abilities, and that God gives us. And I think we use them to different capacities all throughout our life in different ways. You're right. Whenever I jumped into ministry, I didn't realize to the extent that my gifts and abilities were going to be used. And I think sometimes, you have your top 3 spiritual gifts or your strengths in personality that you have. But I think whenever I stepped into ministry, some of those gifts and abilities shifted. And some came to the forefront that I did not realize I had been sort of quieting. And so that has been really enlightening for me to see some of these gifts and abilities that I knew I had, but I was a little bit insecure in, or they were unpolished or unpracticed. God has been bringing to the forefront and allowing me to use them. And I'm still insecure. I'm still a little bit on shaky ground, because remember, this is my first full-time job ever in my life. So I'm learning, but then again, I realized how all my life experiences of being involved in church and observing my family and just being behind the scenes in ministry
Mhm.
has given me this toolbox that I can use and pull from. And so I'm very grateful that I paid attention to, and I was involved with my family, and I really embraced that as part of what we do, because it's serving me so well, and God is using it for his glory in this season of my life.
Yeah. While you were mentioning all of that, the thought, it had come to me, the fact that even when you weren't fully aware, going back a number of years, God was indeed preparing you, and he was working and equipping you for what he had
Yes.
for your future, even though you weren't aware of it. And it's the patience that you exercised, not trying to get out in front of him. And I think that's something that happens in ministry a lot. It's our zeal to want to be engaged and involved in ministry, but sometimes we can get out in front of God and try to force the issue. And you had that patience, and he just kept preparing you in the best kind of way. And so it has paid off, because again, as I watch from a distance and I see how effectively you are doing your job, and I suppose if I made contact with your pastor, he would say, wow, she is amazing. And I just can't imagine what her future holds for her. But do you have any long-term goals in mind as you continue to move through this faith journey?
I am still content. I'm very content at where I am. But at the same time, I know that this is a stretching and growing time for me. This is a time where it's almost accelerated. I know that it's concentrated, accelerated, because what I'm doing is trying to be the best that I can and do the next best thing to the best of my ability. And it's all about discovering, and it's an adventure. And I feel like this is one of the best seasons of life. I loved being a mom. I still love family. I still love being a mom. I own that title. But this place where God has me in ministry is sweet and precious, and I'm enjoying it because it did take so long to get here.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I really appreciate you taking this time to just share, because I really believe that it can inspire a lot of individuals who maybe are just beginning that walk of discovering what ministry might look like. And I think it's very inspiring. You sure caught Cheryl and I off guard, because in those teenage years, we just knew that you were a wonderful person and that you would have a bright future, but we didn't probably see it in ministry. And now, today, to see that and to realize, wow, how powerful that is for you. It is just an amazing thing. And I'm glad I got to exploit that a bit today with the podcast. So I just, again, want to say thank you for taking the time to share with me. And I wish you God's very best.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. We love your family, and you have been an inspiration from our perspectives. So I love watching you and how you've just morphed, and you inspire and bless the church in so many ways. So I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
See ya.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment right now to hit share and include a comment.